billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to all this morning. I am your host Hajra Sati. Ramazan Mubarak to everyone out there. And also joining me is my wonderful co-host Fahim Bangaj. Assalamu alaikum Fahim, and once again Ramazan Mubarak to you and everyone out there. How are you doing today?
Assalam. I'm really good, really well, really fresh. And how are you?
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. So far we are in the first Ashra of Ramadan, and I've always say and maintain that I really love the vibe of Ramadan because you can see there's certain spirituality which you can find, and especially for him, I'm really grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his blessing to allow us to live in a country where we can practice our religion and where there's no hindrance for observing our religious rituals. I think certainly this is a thing that we take for granted a lot, but I think we need to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Actually, yes, you're quite right, because once you go abroad, once you go out of Pakistan, only then will you realize the freedom that you have here, the freedom that you have in Pakistan, be it religious freedom, the freedom of expression. Well, it's so wonderful indeed. And Hajra, I really wanted to ask you, do you like coffee?
Not exactly. I don't have a very developed taste of coffee, but I guess when you go abroad, they have so many different sort of flavors of the coffee, and I'm really lost into that. But having said so, I'm not a tea or a coffee lover either. Caffeine-free person.
Really?
Yes.
At all?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I must say wow. Because did you know that coffee has its roots back in Yemen, in Arab? And I was astonished and astounded by that fact, because obviously I knew that as far as medicine is concerned and many other subjects are concerned, but coffee, I never knew that. I always thought of it to be a Western thing. And it came to me as something really astonishing, because when I read about it, Yemen, the rich culture of Yemen is just amazing.
Yes.
Yes,
thank you so much for sharing that, and you made me remember a lot of things about coffee, because I was reading about how coffee was very ingrained, especially in the Arabic culture, and so we know that there was an acrimony between the Western culture and the Arabic culture back in the medieval days. So Westerns were very mindful and they were very suspicious of the coffee, because they felt that this is a very poisonous sort of a thing, because Arabs have launched this thing in order to destroy their forces, but now you feel there's so many flourishing coffee houses there that's not like that.
And I always knew that they took it from the West.
No, not at all. Even if you talk about the food ethics in terms of what do you call the serving or the use of the fork and the spoon, it was introduced by the Arabs, and then it went to the West, and now you feel that it's a very Western thing to do, eating with a fork and spoon. No, it was not. So we Muslims have a very rich legacy, but unfortunately we do not claim that, or we feel that it's a Western legacy. And having said so, Fahim, Ottoman Empire had a very brilliant sort of a legacy when it comes to coffee houses, because they were the places where the rational critical debates used to be held, and people used to go out and drink the coffee. And when I went to Turkey, you will find there were a lot of coffee, they called coffee as kahve. So you will find a lot of kahve hane, like we call khane, they call it hane.
I see.
There. So yes, Muslims had a really brilliant intellectual history. But
and talking about Hajra, coffee houses, and talking about these shops and restaurants and everything and eateries, I think we must not forget talking about the environment, because we know how much waste that creates, be it food waste, be it plastic waste, be it all kinds of waste. And I think that's something that needs to be remembered, observed, and it needs to be done something about, because obviously as today we know that Environmentalist International Day of Zero Waste is being observed. And I think it's a wonderful initiative by the United Nations that this day has been set up as the Environmentalist International Day of Zero Waste, to perhaps make people more aware about what's going on in all the globe, because obviously we're looking forward to 2030 sustainable development goals, and I think with the current level of waste that we have, it would be quite difficult. So more and more initiative, more needs to be done basically. And in that regard, we have our guest in the studios in the first segment, Dr. Ijaz Ahmed. He's an environmentalist. Dr. Ijaz Ahmed, good morning and assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all of you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. Jazakallah khair for coming. And we are often having the conversation with Dr. Saab regarding the climate change, regarding all of these environment degradation issues. So, Dr. Saab, we have today the International Day of Zero Waste. And let's talk about Pakistan first, because we can find certainly that there's a lot of waste and litter, especially on the roads, especially on the garbage. And we do not have a proper, what do you call, the waste disposal mechanisms in the place. Or is my assertion wrong? Is there, a proper mechanism, but we, the people, we do not take the responsibility to dispose of our litter in the proper place? What's your opinion?
Well, it's a mixture of both. The overall scenario is not that bad, but ultimately, like the practices that we follow, they are very environmental unfriendly. And whether you talk about individuals, whether you talk about the overall society or industry or any segment of society, things need improvement at all level. There are certain systems which are existing. For example, in Islamabad or even in Lahore or big cities, there is a proper mechanism of garbage disposal. But I think it's more than that. When we talk about zero waste, it starts from the first stage, which is basically, like if you are buying something, if you are producing something, if you are an industry and you are producing something and using those practices which are not environmental friendly, which actually results in more and more waste. So, that actually is where you need to start working on. Right from where this whole waste is generated, whether it's a product or whether it's the source of the product. So, I think at all level there is an important need to see whatever, are we wasting our water, are we wasting our other resources like electricity, power, or if we are a textile mill owner, so are we wasting the raw material?
Yes.
So there is a need to take into consideration each and every step of the production, as well as when we talk about household level.
Yes.
Also we need to look into whether we need something that we are actually buying. So if we don't need anything and buying it, ultimately we are wasting. So there are different levels, and each level we need to educate, and I think this is a very important day, and UN has taken a good decision in a sense that in order to educate people about the waste.
And sir, this year, what's the agenda of, what's the theme of this day by the UN?
Exactly, I don't know the words, but it's focusing on the minimizing the plastic waste. And I think that is a big nuisance in a sense that
Absolutely.
Over a period of time, the life of a plastic is enormous. I mean, like a few hundred years. And then I think there are certain plastic which are reusable, but then there is the more problem is related to the single use plastic, and which is so common, and it is creating a lot of problems at every level.
Because the other day I was noticing myself that there was one syrup that I used to get for the family as far as acidity is concerned. It used to come in a glass bottle. Now it has also started to come in a plastic bottle, which is very, very sad as a matter of fact.
Everything.
And also talking about plastics, I was also reading that the world, globally, we see a production of 2.8, 2.9 billion tons of waste annually, and that is expected to rise to 3+ figure by about 2040 if proper steps are not taken. That is quite alarming, because we also know that the population is also increasing at an alarming rate. So has the UN also taken any steps so far, and are there any plans in that regard?
But before Dr. Saab builds onto the conversation, so Fahim, the theme of this year is achieving sustainable and environmentally sound practices of minimizing and managing waste. So Dr. Saab very rightly pointed out that it's hinged around the waste management. So please, Dr. Saab, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think I sort of like forgot what you said.
Okay, so he was talking about how the plastic waste is going around and how we need to curtail this tendency. And I think you pointed out a very good point, and I always keep talking about it, which is the elephant in the room, and we need to address that, which is the capitalistic practices. Because capitalism forces us to focus on our wants rather than the needs, and that is why you see that there's so much production coming in, there's so much products that are being used. Let's take the example of mobile, right? Every year a new version is launched, and that's not our want exactly, need exactly. This is our want, this is a luxury, and the waste that goes into the ocean, which is dumped there, and how much damaging it is for the coral reefs. And we've seen that how coral reefs are getting destroyed across the oceans, and that is very damaging for the ecology of the ocean, because it is increasing the ocean acidification and etc. So Dr. Saab, do you think we can tackle this issue of the capitalism, or is it such a huge venture when the money making is concerned that it's very difficult to tackle it?
Well, I don't think maybe we'll be able to tackle it, but not in this century. I think it is there is a lot of money, capital which is involved in it, and there are so many big guns who are actually associated with it. So I think it will take time, but it is important that people realize that this is an issue, and then based on that, then ultimately they start working on it. Although it will take time, but then I think you have to start from somewhere. And I also feel that like over a period of time, the whole process, the globally many big industries have actually started thinking about it. For example, this carbonated drinks, their footprint was very high. I mean, like for 1 liter of cold drink that is produced, 2.4 or 2.5 liter of water was used. So now they have started realizing that this is a wastage of water. So ultimately they have come up with certain solutions, either by improving the watershed of various places, or by improving their process, and ultimately they have actually brought it to 1.8 or 1.7 liter for a liter of a drink that is being produced. Similarly, there are many other industries which are actually, I think it's good for them also, because they are saving a lot of resources. So the cost of production is also decreasing. So that itself, I mean, like if you are buying water from outside, so then basically like by reducing that water, you are reducing your cost also. And also like if you are pumping water from underground, so that is also like you are wasting less energy, and then you are paying less bill. So it is cost effectiveness is an important aspect that is required for an industry. But I think overall globally the footprint of those industries is also reducing. So there are many better management practices, many good production systems that are being actually advocated by various organizations, UN, NGOs, etc. And they are actually following as well.
So you're right that they are reduced, and I think that's good news for the whole world. But do you think the goal which has been set up as far as the SDGs are concerned, Sustainable Development Goals, will they be achieved by 2030? Because still I think that there's a lot more which needs to be done, especially in the developed world.
Well, I don't think that we will be able to achieve it, maybe like at global level, but maybe certain countries, for example, I think we talk about Pakistan, we are doing quite good in some and very badly in most of these SDGs. But those which are related to environment, climate change, Pakistan is doing much better. And I think it is also because of the fact that we are facing the disasters. We are among top 10 countries which are facing the impact of this climate change and environmental degradation processes. So that is why we need to act as soon as possible and in a very practical manner. So, some of the SDGs we are taking very seriously, and I think they will be in a better position. For example, the forest cover
Yes.
is improving. There is a degradation process also side by side going on, but I think the forest cover has improved to some extent. Similarly, the protected area network has also improved. So, there are few aspects which are related to SDGs, and we are doing quite good.
Right. Right. So, Dr. Saab, let's talk about, because Fahim, I came across this very concerning news report which mentioned that how there was so much amount of the litter, plastic litter present, or plastic was consumed in the pre-birth level in the fetuses of a mother, and that was very concerning because obviously
microplastics,
yes, because mother was consuming the content and it had the microplastics. So, Dr. Saab, I mean, we have seen such sort of effects, I mean, delving down into the generation which is not even born yet, right? How concerned we should be as the citizen of this global world?
I think this is very alarming in a sense that you might have heard about Astola Island, which is one of the island, the largest island in the North Arabian Sea, close to Pasni and Gwadar.
Yes.
And it is not inhabited, it's a small island, and there were some students who were conducting research on microplastic.
Okay.
And they collected samples from the Astola Island area,
Right.
and they found microplastic.
Okay.
There is no industry
from an
near.
uninhabited area.
Yeah. So, it is the movement, actually the water moves from here and there is no industry. I mean, like at the moment,
Yes.
in the closest is Karachi or maybe Hub, and then Dubai, and like the Iranian water comes over there. But still you see this microplastic which flows with the water, and it is causing, ultimately it becomes part of the food, and then it is causing a lot of problem for biodiversity. As far as corals and are concerned, I think we have been facing this issue for quite some time, in a sense. The industrial effluents which were actually thrown into the sea, they were bleaching the corals, and even near Hub there is another small island, Charna. There also people have seen the like the impact of this polluted water coming from industry, coming from power houses, which are actually creating problems for the corals in that area.
It's wonderful how the UN is doing something and taking initiatives, and there are people like you who are environmentalists who are there and are looking forward and are conscious of the fact that this is actually a problem, because like Hajra, you were mentioning very rightly that this may become a permanent part of the DNA of our upcoming generations. So sir, what message would you like to give to all the viewers who are watching you right now?
Well, I think it's quite understood that there are certain things which we can easily like do, like minimize the waste, manage our own waste at household level. So, I mean, like if the like waste is managed at household level, one important aspect is food wastage. I mean, like this is enormous in a sense that
it is enormous.
Yeah, I mean, like in countries like Pakistan, people are wasting, I mean, like food to that extent that like 90 kilogram or 80 plus kilogram per person per year is wasted, which is almost food for like 3 months time. About 1.2, 1.3 kilogram consumption on a daily basis. So, ultimately if 90 kilogram is wasted, so we are actually wasting 90 days of food.
Oh,
so, just imagine how this can be, I mean, like very easily controlled. If I know I have to, I'm going to eat one roti or like 20 spoons of rice, I should actually take that amount and then like instead of wasting it, maybe give it to someone who is more deserving. So things, I mean, like we can ourselves manage it, control it, and ultimately like things can improve to that extent where we don't see the government is not doing anything. We have to start from our own self.
Exactly, and I think thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for pointing this out. This is a very defensive approach where we blame the government for not doing enough. But I think there are a lot of cultural norms, social practices, like Dr. Saab mentioned, how much we waste food, that we need to rethink our approach towards that, and especially in attaining the International Day of Zero Wastage, right? Because this is how we are going to start. The first step starts from us in order to tackle this menace. So thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for coming here for this cross-pollination of the ideas. With that, we will wrap up this segment. So don't go anywhere. After a short break, we have a very spiritual conversation coming up.
Thank you.
Welcome back to World This Morning with Fahim Bangush and Hajra Sati. And as Hajra, you very rightly mentioned before the break that we were going to have a spiritual discussion. And we have with us our esteemed guest, Mr. Imran Sandhu, who's a religious scholar. Assalamu alaikum and good morning.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So, sir, we were talking about certain surahs in our previous programs, and I think we should move forward today. And like we were having an offline, off-the-air discussion, you were telling us about what Maida means. So, sir, could you shed some light on the main teachings of Surah Maida, and whether it's a Makki surah, Madani surah, and also the context of its revelation as well?
Nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallimu ala rasulihil kareem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Maida actually means feast. So Nasara, or the Christians actually, who call themselves as the helpers of Isa alayhi salam, in return to what they were doing, they wanted a miracle to happen, and the miracle was that a whole feast should come to them on a daily basis from the heavens.
Okay.
And they were doing it in order to compare themselves with Mano Salwa that used to come to the followers of Musa alayhi salam or Moses alayhi salam, peace be upon them all. So in this surah, the main context of this surah is to and the nuzul of this surah is that I think it revealed near when Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for Umrah, and the contract of Hudaybiyah actually was done by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is the basic context approximately in the 7th year of the Hijrah.
I see.
So that is why the main context or the pretext of this surah is to abide by contracts.
Okay.
Islam, as we discussed, Quran is about taqwa and Ramadan is about taqwa, and people who are muttaqi, they would definitely uphold the contract.
Right.
So the contract is a contract has various angles to be. If we do a contract with someone, for example, we have a social contract that is known as the Constitution.
Yes.
So when we subscribe to our Constitution, we should abide by the general principles of the Constitution.
Yes.
Constitution, and for us, for Muslims, the Constitution is the Quran and the Sunnah. And for us Pakistanis, the constitution is the constitution of Pakistan, which actually abides by and upholds the constitution of Quran and Sunnah.
Yes.
By the virtue of this contract, so as Muslims, as of today, if we try to apply Surah Maida in our life, we should try to understand the concept of Hudaybiyah.
Okay.
And the concept of Hudaybiyah actually entails all those problems, addresses all those problems that came between the mushrikeen of Makkah and the Muslims of Medina.
Okay.
So it also tells us how diplomacy can work, how even people who were mushrik, they didn't let Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam go for Umrah, and after but Prophet did not. Prophet tried to have a contract with them, so much so that Suhail ibn Amr, later on he became a Muslim before even much before Fateha Makkah, and he was then given a title of Orator of Islam.
I see.
And there is a very interesting story behind it, that Suhail ibn Amr came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when on the day of Hudaybiyah for signing a contract from the Meccan from the side of Meccan people.
Okay.
And he said that and under the contract it was written Suhail ibn Amr and then Muhammadur Rasulullah. Suhail ibn Amr actually refuted and said that, you know, we don't because he was not a Muslim at that time, he said that we don't believe that you are the Prophet of God, so you should write Muhammad ibn Abdullah. So Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ordered Hazrat Ali radiyallahu ta'ala an to cut it off and erase it and write Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Hazrat Ali said, out of his love and respect of Prophet, that please do not order me to do it. So Prophet did that himself. So this is the kind of teachings of diplomacy of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to attain a bigger goal.
Right.
You can go on and even have to maintain peace, and to attain peace you can retreat back, have a strategic retreat, and sign contract that may sound a little unequal even sometimes, to have time, to gain time, to buy time and for peace, and give peace a chance. And in the history of Islam, Hudaybiyah is a very central contract.
Yes.
There are two central contracts. One is the Mithaq Medina and the other is the contract of Hudaybiyah. Contract of Hudaybiyah tells us how to be diplomatic with your opponents, and how to be the contract of Medina tells how to be inclusive with the people, with the society of different religions, different creeds, different qabail. So this is what actually Surah Maida tells us, that it gives purifying conceptualization of creed by clarifying that the religion is one entire religion of Islam is one entire unit, and it is indivisible. The society becomes indivisible also at human levels. So as a human you have got certain basic human rights that must be accounted for. And then the another thing is that as a leader of a nation, the leader of the nation has to be very soft as well as very hard. On certain things he should show leadership and become very stringent, where the concept of peace comes in, where the concept of greater human values comes in. He has to make sure that the human values are inculcated in the society.
Right. So, Sindhu Saab, you mentioned a very important point, and this is the point that I often reflect upon, especially in my me time. I would like to characterize it, which is that Ummah is one body, right? If a Muslim is anywhere around the world, he has the same, or he or she has the same sort of rights and responsibilities, regardless of the geographical territories. But when we come to modern 20th century or 21st century, we feel that this century, the concept of the modern nation state emerges, which is very territorial in nature, which is very geographical in nature. Do you think it is possible to reconcile the ummatic concept of one nation, that like Iqbal mentioned, एक हो मुस्लिम हरम की पास पानी के लिए, नील के साहिल से लेके ताब खा के काशगर, and the modern nation state system, which is very geographical.
A very interesting question. You know, at the time when this Quran was being revealed, world was not connected as it is connected today.
Yes.
You know, like now what we could see, how we could communicate in that era was like, if we had to go around the world, it would take more than 3-4 years. But today, you know, you can travel around the world within 24 hours.
Yes.
What I don't know what's happening next.
Yes.
So the world has just reduced itself to a small, like if it was a football, like a football at that time, now it's just like a ping pong ball.
Yes.
For us, like ping pong, how we have actually progressed. So with this progress, how does Islam guides us? What is the guidance of Islam? So you know, when a small geographical boundary needs to be regulated, there are the principles would be the same as how a big big geographical boundary or billions of people need to be regulated. The principles are the same because the human values are the same.
Yes.
But Hazrat Shah Waliullah Rahmatullah Alayhi has given an idea in his book Hujjatullahil Baligha. And that is the way in this modern era. He says that the governance needs to be done in 5 categories rather.
Okay.
One is the governance, and I was just thinking about it before coming to your program today, especially because of you, Hajra, because you tend to ask very philosophical questions. I just thought if Hajra asks this question and she asked it.
So it's a great mind thinks alike, right?
great mind thinks about ideas, right?
Yes, yes.
So and average people think about people
Yes.
all the
yes,
time.
Yes.
So okay, so the thing is, you know, the 5 levels are, one is the level of the family.
Okay.
So the household, or tadbirul manzil we call it in Sharia, it needs to be regulated by the leader of the house or the leader of the family. So Islam gives a right to the father of the house to regulate, and Islam does not want the state to encroach in that area.
Wonderful.
Right? Nobody can encroach in the boundary of your house, not even the state,
Okay.
Islamically.
Yes.
The second thing is, then comes the city. So Islam also tells us this is the second category of governance framework. Islam tells that there should be a leader of the city. Then there should be a leader of a couple of cities that would be a country, and then there should be a universal agreement among the Muslims as well. You know, organizations like United Nations, that this idea was, I think, you know, taken, copied or taken, and it's a universal thing.
Yes.
By the Western thinkers, the Western philosophers. The idea was originally given by Shah Waliullah Rahmatullah Alayhi in his book 250 years ago, that there should be an international governance framework as well. And as we go down the line, we should delegate the authority according to the responsibilities. So the international body should have an authority to keep an international peacekeeping force.
Right.
And then the country should have their own armies to keep the border secure.
Right.
And then the local framework should have police in order to keep the society regulated. And of course, the laws also need to be made with shurayat, like with consultation. So there are two kinds of laws. One is hudud, and the other laws are tazir.
Okay.
So in tazir in Islam, Islam gives a right to do tazir on certain things that are other than hudud. Hudud is where Allah tells in Quran, for example, blood of a Muslim is sacred, blood of a human being is sacred in the eyes of Islam. So Islam gives a had, or a law named as had, to protect the blood of a human being.
Right.
And the law is known as qisas and diya.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So and the how would I say, the respect of a human being is also sacred. Allah's Prophet tells that, you know, a heart of a Muslim is has a greater value than that of Kaaba. So that is why, you know, the respect of a human being, especially the internal respect and the bodily respect, is central to the idea of Islam. So the had of zina is also implemented in the law of hudud, so that that could be secured. If somebody, if people try to destroy the mashra or the society by doing zina, the Islam, the laws of Islam of hudud comes into play. But that the story doesn't end over here. There are certain you know, but in order to implement had, the level of witness is very hard.
Right.
But then if there would be some crimes where the level of witness is not available, but circumstantial evidences would tell us that this thing has happened, qatl has happened, or zina has happened, or rape has happened. So then Islam also gives right to the governance framework that is implemented by the shura to legislate and give punishments for regulating that portion as well. So Islam actually, this is, the law is also part of the social contract. The constitution is also part of the social contract, and the norm is also part of the social contract. We call it as urf. So Surah Maida actually tells about all these kind of all the kinds of contract. Surah, you know, it tells about the Faujdari Qawaneen, or the criminal law of Islam. It also tells about qisas. It also tells about what kind of you know, crimes were committed by the people of the book. They started to, you know, abrogate laws of Bible and Torah.
Well, so we will definitely continue this discussion in our future programs as well. But thank you so much. It's always so enlightening talking to you, and I mean, I get into that spiritual realm while talking to you, and it gives me that inspiration to go through the Quran in detail myself and in depth, because there's so much that we don't know, and there's so much that we should know. Being Muslims, obviously, this is one thing that's obligatory on us, not just to read it, but to understand it, to know the context of the revelation. And I think each and every ayah can be basically applied to us in this modern era as well. And like Sandusa was mentioning, so many rights to legislation have been given to us. There is so much depth in each and everything that if all the ahadith and all the ayahs are applied, I think there would be no more crime in this world. And well, with that, we end our program. Thank you very much, Imran Sadhu for coming in here. It's always a pleasure listening to you and talking to you. And definitely, we will be seeing you in our
preceding days. And thank you so much once again. And with that, we'll say Allah Hafiz and Ramadan Mubarak to everyone out there.